It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I had the privilege of interviewing the Pacific University's assistant track and field coach, Coach Riley Stewart. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Brandon.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college track and field?
Yeah, so when I was running in college and even in high school, I knew running was something that I really enjoyed, something that was a big part of my career. So I knew I wanted to pursue coaching in some kind of way. My initial plan was to be like a high school coach, and teach at high school. But when I had the opportunity to like assistant coach for Pacific University, I jumped on it. I was like, oh yeah, sign me up. College sounds way funner than high schoolers, because I was a high schooler once. I've been there. So um, definitely something that I've been thinking about a lot. Even in high school, I was doing like volunteer um, like camps for youth camps. And I really enjoyed just like connecting with athletes through running, and just I had such a great positive experience. I wanted to share that with others. So
What was that experience like going to Pacific University and competing in track and field as an athlete?
like I said, running was huge. I loved it. It was great. But in college, like from high school to college, it was such a big shift between like the amount of work you put in, the freedom to change your schedules and like make it work around running. I always like to kind of joke I was instead of a student athlete, I was an athlete student. I was making my schedule fit for running because I loved running so much. Um, I still got good grades and I did all my homework, but it was definitely like a huge shift from high school into college. So it was something I really did enjoy, and something I recommend, to if you have any thoughts of running in college, to definitely pursue it and make it something that works for you.
For you as an athlete, what was that experience like putting on that uniform and representing Pacific University?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, my freshman year, like I knew I was gonna run wherever I went. So it was like Pacific, wherever, like I wasn't like super tied down, but I was at Pacific, so I was gonna run there. But as I like, got to know the team and, was putting more and more work in, like I grew to have a lot of respect for that Pacific jersey, because everyone on the team was putting the work into, and we were all like all willing to sacrifice a lot for each other. So it was like when you put that jersey on, it was like, I'm gonna go do something awesome. I'm gonna go put everything out there. And so it's an interesting from my freshman to my senior year of like kind of shift of like, it's specific, where it's some D3 school, we're just gonna run, whatever, to like this is Pacific. This is this is a D3 school. So um yeah.
As a collegiate athlete, what were some of your biggest accomplishments?
Um I think probably qualifying for nationals my senior year for cross country was like my biggest achievement by far, for sure. It was a goal I had, as a tiny little freshman, not really understanding what it would take, but like nationals sounds cool. Like that would be cool. Um, to like just telling myself I could do it every year, you know, until like finally happening, like, oh wow, like I did it, like that was just such a amazing feeling of like um all my hard work paying off, and it all kind of coming together. After that season was the track season, and I ran some fast times and had a good time. But really, that qualifying for nationals is definitely the highlight for me.
Coming out of college, what was that transition like from being an athlete to getting into coaching at your alma mater?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. I loved running. I knew I wanted to keep running, but I um, first went into teaching, and I didn't know if I would continue running as competitively or not. And it was definitely a shift from not being on a team. I try to run, 5 days a week still when I moved to Colorado, and it didn't happen. It was hard to find the motivation. So when I came back to coach, it was like, okay, here I'm falling in love with running all over again. So that felt really good. And then it was a little interesting coming back to the alma mater where I had teammates who were still on the team, from like freshmen when I was a senior, and they were still there, kind of like balancing, I know you knew me before, but now I'm like a coach and building that respect. It took a couple months, but once we got it in, it all worked out really well.
What was that like getting to coach some of your teammates that were your teammates when you were an athlete?
Yeah, it was cool because like I knew them as teammates and now I knew them as a coach and I kind of had like the inside, usually you don't get to know athletes super, super well like you do like your best friend or something. So it's kind of fun coming as a coach being like, okay, I know this about you, so we can kind of like cater our, training or like our post-race conference to like things I know about you, but also like building that kind of wall up a little bit, being like, okay, I know we've had fun in the past or we've been friends, but now it's like I am the coach and we need to move forward that way. So it was definitely a balancing act, but I think it worked really well.
For you now as a coach, what was that feeling like putting on that coaching polo and representing the same school that you ran for?
It was super kind of surreal initially. Like I remember the first kind of meet I was at as a coach instead of as an athlete. And like all of the, stress from when I was competing kind of came back. And I was like, wait, I'm not racing. Like I'm just getting to cheer on. It was kind of this like fun moment of, wow, I put all this work in. Now I get to watch all these athletes put it in and have it pay off for them. I still get really nervous when they race, almost more nervous when I do, but it's like a different kind of nervous now. It's like, okay, it's on them now. They get to do it and they get to put all the work in. But it was definitely an interesting switch, like, jersey to polo, like what the different feelings.
What are some of your game day routines and rituals from when you were a player to now as a coach?
Um, we kind of have a pretty, straightforward, like, especially for cross country, like we get there, we warm up. Um, One thing I guess I've kind of like tradition that I've kept on is when I was an athlete, our head coach Bailey would draw on our bibs. So I've been drawing on our athletes' bibs to like, a little picture for fun. They can like think about while they're racing that there's a nice little picture under their bib. Um, but we don't really do anything crazy. A lot of it's pretty basic, just warming up, doing drills as a team, and then like a little quick team meeting for the race. But um, maybe it just feels normal because that's what I did in college and what I do as a coach now. But it seems pretty basic, yeah.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to help to build for Pacific Track and Field?
Yeah, so when I was on the team, it was a very, very small team. We had, um, I think one year we had 5 guys. Like we barely had enough to score points, which, is tough to be winning conference championships or anything when you only have 5 guys. But it was a really interesting moment where we could kind of decide what we wanted our team culture to be like, since it was so small, If 3 of us wanted to do something, like we could make it happen. So I feel like when I was on the team, we kind of like decided, we want a strong community, we want a strong culture of support and, building each other up, being positive. And that is like continued as the team's kind of grown. Now we have 28 athletes total, which is way bigger than we were, but the team still feels very close and um, very strong community, a lot of positivity, building each other up instead of tearing each other down. And that is just kind of built from when I was on the team to now as a coach, like maintaining that. And it's something that I'm really proud of.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
So yeah, we compete up against mostly the Northwest Conference. So that's like Linfield, Willamette, Whitworth, George Fox, um, oh gosh, I don't want to forget any, Lewis and Clark, Puget Sound, PLU. Um, and then, but we also get to compete against a lot of like D1 schools like OSU and University of Oregon, Portland and University of Portland as well, which is nice to have that kind of combination.
What is that feeling like getting to compete against those Division 1 schools like Oregon, Oregon State, and Portland?
Yeah, it's really cool because, D3 and D1 are different. Like we definitely are more focused academics, but running is like something we do because we love it and want to get better. So it's nice to have that like taste of D1 with still focusing on academics. So we get to like race some D1. It's really great opportunity for some of our athletes to really like challenge themselves and race at the D1 level without having to be in like a D1 school where your scholarship depends on your running and all that with a lot of stress and pressure. So I really like the fact that we get all the benefits of D3 with some of the fun D1 kind of challenges as well.
On a meet day, what is it like seeing different teams like Linfield, that's in your conference, versus competing against Oregon at the same time?
It's an interesting balance because, for our conference meet, we only race our conference schools. So it's like when we see a Linfield or George Fox or something, it's like, okay, go chase those guys down or those girls down because, at conference, those are going to be people you're going to be racing. Whereas when you see like a, Oregon or a Portland, you're like, oh wow, they're really fast. If you can stay with them, that's awesome. So it's like kind of a balance between, for the conference meet, we want to focus on these people. But if you're trying to run fast, like let's go chase some of those guys down and see what you can do. So it's a fun kind of combination between the two, yeah.
How's that like getting to see your athletes competing against teams like Oregon versus when you're in competition competing against teams like Linfield?
It's super fun because and one of the things I love about D3 especially, but especially Pacific, like we have athletes kind of all over the field of like competitiveness and my big goal is like for people just to get better and be willing to put the work in. So we have some kids who probably could have ran D1 but chose to go D3, so they get to race those people. It's super fun to like watch them get to compete against um those D1 athletes, whereas we have some kids who are improving a lot and putting the work in but are not going to race against the D1 kids, so having them race the conference and like still chasing people and having people to run with versus being on their own is a really nice balance that I really think is great. And having watching them, I think watching both is super fun. It's not like I only like watching the fast guys or fast girls race the D1. It's also awesome watching someone improve by 30 seconds in a race because they chase that conference athlete down.
For you, what is that experience like getting to coach different positions, whether it's distance, throwing, or javelin?
So I actually am focused only on the distance team. So I'm the head cross country coach and then the assistant track and field, where I focus mainly on distance. But I do think it's super fun being at like practice. Um, Coach Ryan and Coach McKenzie, the sprinter and the throws coach, I see them all the time. So I get to watch them kind of coach their kids, and it's super fun. I'll walk around and say hi to them and watch them like, teach one of their multi kids how to throw the javelin. I'm like, what is this weird ball you have? And they're like doing these weird moves. So it's super fun watching that and being around it. But I'm definitely distance focused for sure.
For you, what is that transition like going from coaching distance and track to coaching cross country?
Yeah, it is. Um, it's interesting. It's not like super different because it's the same kids running mostly distance, but we do have, some cross country kids who focus on the 800 or focus on the 15. So there are shorter events. So trying to like, specialize the training to help them while also, there's some kids who are running the 10K. So it's a lot of more of specific workouts during track, and a lot more workouts on the track versus, on the canter on the roads for cross. So it's kind of fun having the two different seasons of like, all right, cross country, everyone's doing a tempo on the roads, and the track, you're like, all right, we have 800 group doing this workout, we have a 15 3K doing this workout, and we have the 5K 10Ks doing this workout. So it's definitely sometimes feels more hectic during a workout when you have three different groups doing three different workouts. But it's kind of more fun too. So I do love both. I think they're both great, and it keeps me on my toes. If it was all cross country, I feel like I get bored, So
What was that feeling like when you became the head cross country coach?
it was a really good feeling because I've been assistant for a while, and I had I agreed. I really liked my coach who I assistant coach under. Really respected a lot of things she said. Um, but I definitely wanted the team, to be my own at some point. So when I finally got that job, it was like I don't know. It was like the best feeling I've ever had. Like, oh wow, I did it. And, all this work paid off, and I kind of got the job that I've always wanted, which, um, you know, I still feel very young and very blessed to have this job at this age. So I can't wait to see, what happens in 10 years, 15 years. I'm still doing this.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've started to help to build for the program?
Yeah, I think my, culture, I definitely focus on positivity, building each other up. I think it's important to realize that we're all on the same team. We all want to get better and kind of focus on that versus, oh, I want to beat my teammate because I want to beat them. It's like, no, it's okay to lose to your teammates because that means they did it really good and you're just doing really good as well. So I think focusing more on, yeah, like I said, building each other up is my big focus. And as far as like recruiting goes, I look mostly for athletes who will fit well with that, are willing to have that positive attitude versus like only looking at times, So
As a coach in alma mater, what is it like seeing those freshmen putting on that Pacific track uniform for the first time?
it makes me really excited because I just think back to, when I was a freshman and didn't know what I was doing, getting ready for college, like kind of stressed, but like excited and just knowing like all the great things that they're going to be able to do at Pacific, academically and athletically makes me really excited for them. And, I'm always curious to see what they end up doing. I know I changed career paths multiple times in college, and I was very happy with what I came out doing. So, being there, seeing all their steps along the way is super exciting. So, getting getting to see the very beginning and then the end is what I really look forward to.
As a coach in alma mater, what is it like seeing those seniors putting on that uniform for Pacific for the last time?
That's a tough one. Yeah, that one always hurts a little bit. We just had our Pacific Open this past weekend, which is our last home meet. We did like our senior night, and it's like, oh no, like they're gonna be gone soon, and it's tough because they've been such big parts of the team for so long. And thinking of the team without the seniors the next year is always tough. So especially my first year as the head, it's like, oh no, that's my first group of seniors are gone and they won't be back next year. So I always tell them to come visit and come with the team in the future so I can see them again. But it is tough watching them and thinking about that. I try not to think about it too much because it makes me sad. So we'll see.
As a coach, what is it like seeing those seniors going on and getting into coaching, whether it's on the collegiate or high school level, or getting into track and field professionally?
Yeah, I think it's awesome when athletes are able to pursue kind of coaching, sharing their love of the sport with others, regardless of like, if it's a club or a school or something they do part-time, outside of the job. I just think it's great to build the sport up in general. So if there's any, seniors going off to do any kind of coaching, I think it's great. And it's exciting to see that they love the sport so much that they want to share it. They share my love for the sport, right? I think that's, one of the things I strive is to make sure they at least enjoy themselves, if not, build this love for the sport. So I always love seeing that. And, if anyone's pursuing running professionally or even semi-pro, I think that's even awesomer. Like showing, what can you do? Don't give up now just because you graduated. Keep pushing it. Let's see what you can do.
What have been some of the things you've been able to accomplish so far, and what are some of your future plans for the program moving forward?
Um, I've got a lot of big plans for the program. I'd love to get a Northwest Conference title as a team. It's going to be hard with George Fox. They're tough cookies, but and I think if we won a conference title, we'd almost be guaranteed a team going to nationals, which is one of my big goals too. So, we're building up still right now. Got some ways to go, but I think it's definitely something that I want to get done. As far as what I've done so far, um, just getting a lot of PRs from kids who I feel like haven't PR'd in a while. Getting some really good workouts in, building up a lot, and we have a young team right now. Looking forward to the future and getting the seniors ending their season the best they can. So
What advice would you give those freshmen entering their first year of college track and field?
I think just I know from when I was in high school to going to college, a lot of kids just didn't run because they felt like they couldn't. So like first things first, like do it. Join a team. Whether that's a club team or, going Division 3 so you can run. I really think way more people than do can, if that makes sense. Like there's so many good high schoolers don't run because they think they can't, and they kind of, not that they throw away their careers or anything, but like you can do a lot. So definitely just sign up for a team. Um, and stay positive within the sport. I know running can be hard because the times are so like there. So it's like, oh, I got slower this year. That sucks. Doesn't feel good. But don't give up. Keep pushing. And I think um, you people can do a lot more in college than they think they can. I know I PR'd by way more than I thought I ever would have in college based off my high school time. So
What advice would you give those seniors that have aspirations of getting into coaching after their playing career?
Yeah, I think sometimes getting into the coaching is kind of tough. You got assistant coach for a while, pay's not great. Um, but I think it's worth it. If coaching something you want to do, I would say definitely, commit to the assistant coaching, get a part-time job. I was a substitute teacher while I was assistant coaching, pay the bills, but definitely, find something that you love and follow that. So if that's coaching, definitely take the time to commit to that. And it's going to be hard. It's going to feel tough. You're going to have to make sacrifices, but you make sacrifices in running. I mean, that's something, there's ups and downs in the running career. I feel like finding the coaching job is kind of similar. You got to just keep at it, keep pushing, stay consistent, and it'll pay off.
What advice would you give those coaches looking to coach at their alma mater like you have?
I think, if you had a positive experience at the school, definitely do it. Like I feel like it shows athletes that the program works. Like if an alumni wants to come back and coach, like clearly people are having a good time there, and I feel like it bodes well for the season. So definitely, get in with your coaching staff, talk about it, see what they're doing. Obviously, if you you don't want to like kick out the previous coach if they're not ready to move on, right? So it's not like, oh, can you retire so I can get the job? But definitely, I think assistant coaching at alma mater can be a really good way to start. And then, I got kind of lucky with just how the my head coach was ready to move on. But, so at least starting assistant coaching and then, getting a recommendation letter from them to go somewhere else can also work out really well.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program app?
You can follow us at BoxerXCTF on Instagram. And then I actually don't know what my Instagram is, but that would be a great place to start. I think it's like Riley Stewart something, but I think a great places for both our cross country and track team would be BoxerXCTF.
Thank you again, Coach Riley Stewart, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Pacific as the assistant track and field coach and head cross country coach.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you taking the time.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Riley, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.